will try to shout as much as possible and also hear you guys. If someone cannot hear us, please just give us a sign and we'll try to speak a little bit louder. So thanks everyone for being here. Thanks for all of those projects hosting this great meetup and hopefully this exciting panel. My name is Jenna, I'm from Melon, and tonight I will be moderating this panel. So tonight we'll be speaking about decentralization and DeFi. And I think it's going to be quite exciting. So I think we could start by having you guys introducing yourself and your project.
Cool. Hey everyone, thanks everyone for coming out. It's awesome. We were just talking about meetups in San Francisco and other geographies, and it's so great to see such a great concentration of folks. I know we have a captive audience at the conference, so thanks for taking the time. I'm Clay Robbins. I lead growth at 0x. We're a decentralized exchange protocol built on top of Ethereum. So what we enable is any developer anywhere in the world to add exchange functionality to their products and services with just a few lines of code. And we have hundreds of different developers building a whole host of exchange venues and the like with 0x, one of which is on the panel with me today, DeversiFi, and Seth also finds ways to use this as well, and Uma is looking for ways as well too. So yeah, really excited to be here and looking forward to the discussion.
Thanks guys for being here as well. My name is Allison Liu. I'm one of the co-founders of UMA. What we're building is a decentralized financial contracts platform on Ethereum. Specifically what that means is two types of infrastructure. One type is smart contract templates that really easily let anybody with access to the internet create decentralized financial products. And the second set of infrastructure that we're creating is a decentralized oracle that lets you value and finalize settlements of these financial contracts.
Hey folks, my name is Alex. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Set. We are building an asset management protocol on top of Ethereum. Our team pioneered the rebalancing token standard, which we use to encapsulate asset management strategies into tokens that are available for everybody. Happy to be here and provide the perspective of the low-level builder. Woo! Out there.
Hi everyone, I'm Ross, the CFO at DeversiFi. We used to be Ethnex, but on those Ethnex rebranded, relaunched. So we're the only hybrid exchange where you can execute orders of any size against a centralized order book, but from the safety of your own wallet, so you don't compromise on speed, privacy, or security. Yeah, as I said, we're rebranding. Very excited for the next couple of months, running a boatload of functionality. Really looking forward to serving the DeFi community. But I'm like the least technically knowledgeable here. I'm more on the sort of trading and commercial side, so I'm the bad guy in the room.
You'll be fine. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. So I'll introduce Melon as well. I'm the moderator on this panel, but I'll also give the Melon perspective because Melon has been doing a lot of work on decentralizing the governance. So Melon is an infrastructure for asset management. It's a protocol that lets anyone deploy on-chain investment vehicle or funds, and it lets anyone manage them completely on-chain. So I think I would like to start with a very simple question. What is decentralization and what does it mean to you? Just starting from this kind of very simple definition. So whoever wants to start.
I can do the outline and maybe everyone else can color in the lines. So I guess the way that I think about decentralization is kind of as a Russian doll, right? If I think back to my government classes in college and high school, it's the sort of libertarian point of view that central planning and the like should be distributed amongst the people rather than a few elected officials. So that's one way of framing it. If you go a layer down from a technological standpoint, you take things like the advent of the internet, which was originally a network that was designed to be to not have a single point of failure in the event of something like a nuclear attack. So there's another example of what decentralization is. And then in the context of cryptocurrency and obviously decentralized finance, it's really providing the properties that allow for censorship resistance, social scalability, and a couple of other properties that I'm sure other folks will touch on. And so it's obviously an extremely important concept, and I think that we'll touch a good bit on the spectrum in which we're operating at the various projects that we're working on, but also what we see within the ecosystem.
For me, it kind of boils down to access, choice, and control. So access, meaning do you have access to the whole range of financial services and products that most of us here in the West are familiar with and kind of take for granted at this point? Do you have the choice between different products, different product providers, and the choice to even opt out of different systems, depending on whether they're actually serving your needs or not? And do you have control? Do you actually own your own assets, or are they subject to some sort of seizure or freezing in any way? The last startup that I actually worked on before I came to this whole blockchain space actually had this as their vision, access, choice, and control for everybody, but they were still ultimately working within the legacy financial system. We still had to play kind of by those rules and with those sets of incentive structures, the existing kind of power structures that were in place. So I kind of see what we are building here now as fundamentally very, very different, where we are taking economic incentives, embedding them into the use of the technology from the get-go, and hopefully creating systems that will actually allow the users of this technology to accrue value to themselves and also give users the opportunity to vote with their feet.
Yeah, so what I love is I think everybody kind of prefixes it with in this context. And so there's just so many lenses to kind of look at this through. And I think for me, at least from the product and builder's perspective, I think what's really exciting is the idea of composability, right? And we have all these projects that that we as a protocol building team have unfettered access to. Just to give some examples, like us, we are basically an integration company where we're building baskets of assets, and the two things you need for that are liquidity and assets. And so for liquidity, we were able to hook into protocols like Kyber and 0x to be able to collateralize some of our baskets. And for assets, we weren't responsible for creating our own assets. We use stable assets that other teams and other organizations are working on. So it's really interesting that I think teams can not sort of bootstrap, because that implies you're providing yourself, but they can hit the ground running very quickly by tapping into the work that other people in the space have done.
Yeah, pretty well said. I mean, it's more sort of the grand vision, which is, we're building systems where anybody can interact with them without fear of sort of arbitrary censorship. So you subscribe to these systems, you participate. There's no arbitrary censorship. Everyone knows the rules they're signing up for, and whatever value that may be. And also, if there is problems, then people are represented. So I think we're sort of touching on this sort of lots of different levels of decentralization, but there's a sort of like governance level as well, which we haven't had before, and I think a lot of our projects are exploring right now.
Cool, thank you. That's some great answers. So we've touched on transparency, trustlessness, permissionless, censorship resistance. I agree with all that. So the title of the panel today is Who Actually Cares About Decentralization? I do care. I know I care. But I want to ask you, do you guys care about decentralization? If so, why do you care?
Yeah.
Is there someone who doesn't
We can
care
go down
about
the line.
decentralization?
Okay, the short answer is yes. For us at ZeroX, I think decentralization is at the core of what we're building, right? And if you think back to the days before decentralized exchanges exist, there's a host and still exists. A good deal of custodial counterparty risk associated with crypto exchange, and so having a centralized exchange that you have to deposit your crypto into, which as everyone here knows is a bearer instrument. If your private keys are stolen, your money's gone. And so working to solve that core problem and doing so in a non-custodial way, in a centralized way, is extremely important to us. Now, I'm sure we'll get into some of the nuance here, but for us, it really is at the core of everything we're building.
Maybe a way to answer this question actually by polling the audience. So how many of you theoretically care about decentralization? Theoretically. So I can see them a little bit, because some of them are about to go down. Now, how many of you have actually used a decentralized financial product? Okay, that's great.
Pretty good there.
Yeah. How many of you would be willing to go through kind of a variety of UX hurdles, either for yourself or for a friend or whatever else to help them to use these decentralized financial products? And how many of you would be willing to do that on a day-to-day basis? So instead of having Amazon deliver in 2 days to your house, instead of having Google Maps available all the time, instead of having your Gmail available all the time, instead of even using Chrome. Yeah. Yeah. friendly audience. I think the reality is that a lot of the stuff, that we're working on today is still kind of in this theoretical experimentation stage where we are building for scale. We are building kind of for the future, for kind of a different system. I kind of think of why I care about decentralization is trying to kind of shift the world, shift the systems of the world, shift the applications of this world from a place where we have to trust people to not be evil to building systems where people actually can't be evil or at least have no incentive to be evil. And that's kind of why I care. It's all about building in the right incentive structures to create sustainable systems.
I think I agree with everything. I think I care about it insofar as I think that it is actually what allows us to build a financial system that's better than the one that's existing. I know that sounds pretty cookie cutter, and I think the reason why is because we heard, in 2017 and 2018, a lot of what our team likes to call like improvement of life features for protocols that haven't even driven value to Ethereum yet. Things like you only have to sign up once, or you're cutting out middlemen. And I think we haven't really experienced the range of what a DeFi product can actually do, and that's because there's a lot of hurdles that we have to jump in terms of like cognitive load, in terms of UX, and we're not quite there yet. But I very much look forward to that day where we can kind of unlock all the things that we talked about and what we think about in terms of decentralization.
We've got probably like a unique specific use case, which is, we're there to sort of provide traders with liquidity, and the trader's job is to make money, right? So these guys, they say they like decentralization, the concept of it. They're in the industry because that's what we're all doing. But when push comes to shove, like unless they can get the same experience that they get anywhere else, they're not going to use a decentralized product. So the challenge that we faced over the past 18 months is creating something where you get the same experiences with a centralized exchange. You have all these other benefits as well, like censorship resistance, security, privacy, and we've literally just reached that point now. And it wasn't just us and our technology; it was like the whole ecosystem. Like wallets and the learning curve. All of a sudden people are now like experimenting. They've got a sort of rich background. So we're like, our users do care about decentralization, but they're not going to experience it and use it until it gives them everything that they would get everywhere else. It's like the pull of decentralization isn't enough by itself to get people to jump through all these hurdles, and we've seen that with our products. You have to really make it so that it's exactly the same as the UX and the experience they get everywhere else.
Yeah, that's a great point. So actually this brings us to my next question, which was, do users actually care about decentralization? Some of them, yes, probably in this room more than in the average person, I would say. But do they care enough to go through all of those hurdles on the way of having to use MetaMask, having to preserve your keys, all of that? So what's the right balance to attract users? And I'm not talking about those users who are people who are attending the DeFi Summit, but iconic, those users out there. Is it okay to compromise on some decentralization aspect of your product to attract those users, or is it, what do you think, Addison?
So actually, I think you already kind of started to touch on it, where you talked about a pull towards decentralization. I actually think for the average person, there's no real pull towards natural pull towards decentralization. There's a push away from centralization because they're seeing the dangers of it, whether it's with the financial crisis or all these privacy and data hacks, whether it's Facebook or Experian or whatever else. I think the average user is kind of discontent in this low-level grumble way, but not necessarily willing to actually sacrifice on the UX and convenience of these centralized alternatives for now. So I actually think what the biggest draw of all this stuff that we're doing is we are building stuff that makes crypto assets more usable when people have crypto assets or after people have crypto assets. So then the real question becomes, why would the average person bother to get involved? Why do they buy crypto assets? And actually, in every other kind of boom and bust that we've had so far in this space, it's been driven by different forms of speculation. Whether that was, the ICO bubble in 2017 or Bitcoin earlier in the 2010s. And it really actually serves a purpose, because one thing that's universal to any average user, not those of us in this room, is people want ways to make money. And so they see, crypto assets as being a truly alternative asset class, one with extraordinarily high volatility. And so these speculative bubbles actually serve to bring people in, and once they're in, the stuff that we're building is there to keep them hooked, there to make their assets even more usable once they're in the ecosystem.
I think the one thing I want to build on top of what you said is, I think you give this analogy of people either being pushed away from centralization or towards decentralization. I think that was kind of the view in 2017 and 2018 that kind of led to protocols kind of fizzling out. I think the universal truth is people are pulled towards value, and that's what was missing for in large part of a lot of the projects that went down in 2017 and 2018. And so we're seeing that now networks aren't valuable because they're decentralized. They're valuable because they have liquidity. And no one's going to interact with you otherwise. And from the user's perspective, they're sometimes even willing to compromise as long as they know that there's liquidity available. So it's really an interesting gamut of, I think when nothing is kind of happening, they kind of look towards, how decentralized is this protocol? But when things are happening, liquidity is flowing over the protocol, questions could, only come to more. It's more about how to integrate it as quickly as possible and tap into it.
Yeah. For us, the question still exists, though, and I think if you think about our user, or some of our core users as institutions and market makers that are trading within the system, those that are still sort of peering over the edge at decentralized exchange and whether or not they want to participate in this market. I talked about custodial counterparty risk at the top of it. Now there's an emerging trend in discussing smart contract counterparty risk and what recourse looks like in that framing. Because in the traditional financial ecosystem, if you're trading equities, bonds, whatever it is, you have some issue with your counterparty, you have legal recourse. You can sue them, or even to mitigate that risk, you have phone call recourse where you can call someone up, you have an account manager at your broker, and you can resolve any dispute should there be one. In the world of smart contract development, decentralized finance, if there is a hack, in 0x, we saw a bug that exposed us to a prospective hack vector, and there is a question of what is that recourse. And as an institution looking at this space, while there still may be a profit opportunity, there still are inefficient markets where you can capture arbitrage opportunities. That question still lingers of, and will I be putting my assets at undue risk and have no recourse as a result? So, yeah.
But quick question. It all comes. That problem becomes larger with size, right? So, if you're talking about professionalizing cryptocurrencies, most funds, especially bond funds, will trade in billions. So now the counterparty risk is actually a bit of a continuum in effect. So the thing I'm trying to say is that if you're going to put in really large amounts, professional amounts of capital behind cryptocurrencies, those legal structures have to be not only clear, they have to be very, very robust and enforceable literally in every jurisdiction around the world. How far do you think we are from that endpoint now?
Yeah, I still think we're in early days. Some of the things that can work to assuage this issue are things like sorry. No, go ahead and answer.
No. I just asked him to sit down.
Oh, yeah. You can come sit down too.
No.
But no, I think that it'll have to be a natural progression as the space evolves. And I know several folks that spoke at the conference today were touching on the need for insurance to gain user trust. And that is a central point of failure. Now there are things like the Nexus Mutual that could provide a decentralized option to that. But I don't know if I'm quite answering your question, but there are sort of avenues, but from a legal recourse.
I need to answer the question before I ask
it. Yeah, there's going to be a tipping point of the networks reach as much liquidity as it can without these players, and they're not willing to enter until there's ways for legal recourse. And so they're going to pursue that. So
It just brings us to the question, right, which is it okay to compromise on decentralization? If we start building, there's insurance and stuff to build confidence, then maybe that's not such a bad thing as long as the core protocols are decentralized and we give people choice. One of the things I think we forget is that we're in a bubble and a bubble and a bubble, right? I mean, I was reading yesterday that like 20% of the UK population doesn't even go on the internet. I mean, that's insane. Like how are we expecting people to like use web wallets to interact with our exchange? They can't even get online, So I think, there's going to be this like core level of like really tech-savvy people that are totally happy having, self-custody and no insurance, and they're going to write their private keys on their sort of, metal things and bury it in their garden. It's not where mine is buried. But then I think like right the other end of the spectrum, you're going to get like people who are very comfortable like having banks hold their private keys on some level, and somewhere in the middle you're going to get people like Facebook and Samsung, and Safari. They're all going to have these like web wallets, and we're going to onboard billions of people sort of somewhere in the middle. So I think that's kind of exciting. I think that's where it's okay to have some like no decentralization or compromising on it, as long as the sort of core protocols are.
And as the president of this panel, so this is DeFi, decentralized finance. We now know why you care about that and how you think about your users and how far you can go with centralizing some aspects of your project. So I'd like to dig a little bit more into how decentralized each project is, and which project are you okay compromising with. So last week there was a really cool tweet from Luis Puente from the Aragon project. So I'm just going to quote him, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. So he says, "I have been saying this for a while, but DeFi is just CeFi if the contracts are upgradable by an only owner." So, who wants to go first? Alex?
I read that tweet. You retweeted it. I think, so I guess let me give you an overview of our system. There are aspects that...
Maybe just before that,
Sure.
I don't know if it was clear, I'll just give a little bit of context on this. What he's saying is, if there is a company or an entity or a single wallet that can upgrade contracts, this is not decentralized. And it's not decentralized finance, it is centralized finance, maybe open finance. So that's where he's coming from, and that's take it from there.
Yeah, I don't think he's wrong. I think it's more like, what are you looking for at this particular point in time? We're trying to drive adoption, trying to teach people the benefits of building a financial system on top of that. And unfortunately, just from a realistic perspective, you have to bootstrap a lot of that, right? You have to build in mechanisms. Like, I think you mentioned the idea of like, someone on that tweet thread mentioned the idea of like having a state hatch for the exact, sorry before you got into the bus, but for the exact reason of like, 0x and the bug that appeared. It's asking a lot to say that when you go out and design this protocol that it's going to be fully decentralized and fully sustainable until the end of time. I think we're so early in the game that the main objective should be to drive value to the network, and people are willing to accept small amounts of centralization. But I think that also comes with the responsibility of the team not only being able to share with users what those risks are, but to also be reasonable about it, right? I'll give you one example. In our system of contracts, we have the ability to add new exchange wrappers, right? That is completely harmless. There's no way that touches any collateral that has to interface with, that has to be called by a very specific interface, and there's always protections around it. All it does is it makes sure that in the future we can integrate with an exchange like Oasis X. Right? Right now we only support Kyber and Zerolife. And I think those are very reasonable compromises to make. Elsewhere in our system, we designed it such that we require manual operators, but we allow anybody to be those operators, right? So in the event that we go down, people can trigger a rebalance, people can withdraw their funds, people can update prices, they can do those things without us being there. And we take the time to educate everyone on what those things are.
Okay, so as long as it's clear to the users that whatever company behind the project can change the contract overnight without notice,
Right.
it's okay.
Well, and there's a gamut, right? There's a very specific interface that we're allowed to upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we have the ability to add a new contract. There's nowhere in code where you add a new contract and then all of a sudden we can liquidate everything, right? Like we have the ability just to add new exchange wrappers. That's just to give you one example.
Okay, so I don't know, I'm not super familiar with the architecture. I'm a little bit more familiar with 0x, for instance, which I love, and Melon is integrated with 0x, and I've been, looking into this protocol a lot. There is this ability for the 0x team to upgrade the contracts for really good reasons. If there is security vulnerability found, we'd like them to probably fix it and upgrade the contracts. And there is, I think, a delay of, I don't know how many days, I'm not sure if you still have that. So very often the reason is we want to be able to react if something happens, which is totally fair. But do you think that, if a lot of people are building a business on top of 0x or on top of Set or UMA, DeversiFi, which UMA, DeversiFi are a little bit, UMA are not, it's not live at the moment, right? Okay, so, and DeversiFi is not really a protocol, it's on top of 0x, so it's a little bit of a different case. But like for protocols I'm speaking, you have a lot of people building businesses on your protocols who are relying on the infrastructure that you provide. Is it okay to have the risk that one day you may be just stopping the contract altogether, and then all of those people who rely on that are just out of business?
Yeah, I think I look a lot to Bitcoin in framing this sort of discussion and point. And the Bitcoin, when it was introduced, by and large, it has allowed for the transfer of money peer-to-peer over the internet in an extremely secure way for the last decade. And that is like a fucking unicorn type event, right? And it's done so because it has a very slow, dumb layer. It's really difficult, as folks have seen, to build complex business logic on top of Bitcoin and Rootstock and the like are trying to make progress towards that, but it's slow going. Whereas with 0x and with other protocols that are similar to it, the type of business logic that can be implemented is extremely diverse and complex, and that just increases the attack surface or risk surface, even at the protocol layer, as we add more features to support the businesses and developers that are building this. And so, in our case, we want to maintain some control over the upgradability of the protocol in the early days, so that we can get it to the point that it is at a stable point where we can hand it over through the governance process to multiple teams. Because at the end of the day, the core team should just be the ones that, based on 0x improvement proposals that are voted on, just implement the technology or implement the improvement proposal, or it can be some other team if the voters choose otherwise. But for today, as it exists, we have a single multi-sig that has two core functions. One is emergency shutoff without any delay, which is what we leverage in the context of this most recent vulnerability. And I think folks would argue that that's great because if we had a 2-week delay with the governance process and someone knew of a vulnerability, why would you vote on the improvement? Then we could just go steal $20 million and have no recourse. And then the second piece that we have is multi-sig functionality that enables upgrades like an additional asset proxy similar to an exchange wrapper. And those require a 2-week delay. And so we think that delay allows for the governance process to play out over the period of that week, those 2 weeks, and allow for discussion and the like. But ultimately, with migration to a DAO and a full decentralized governance process, and even these large vulnerabilities eventually will be voted on and discussed and hopefully not exploited.
So, a lot of us here are startup people, right? So we're familiar with the concept of MVPs, minimum viable products. In the context of decentralization, it's like, what is the minimum viable decentralization that is needed to offer a differentiated value with this blockchain-based product versus some centralized version that may exist? And right now, it seems like the key utility or value that people are caring about when it comes to minimum viable decentralization is the non-custodial nature of these products that we're creating, as well as the composability of between different products and different protocols. So anybody who's experienced having their finances seized because Binance started doing KYC and kicked off US people, or BitMEX stopped serving Hong Kong citizens, or arbitrarily changed their rules. Like if you troll their Reddit, right, it's filled with these kind of horror stories. these are the people that are now converting over into your non-custodial decentralized contracts. But kind of I'm now moving into I think your next topic, but the key point of failure for a lot of the key point of failure for a lot of these ends up being the reliance on Oracle. So it's cool if your funds are in a smart contract, but ultimately if the Oracle that the smart contract is reading from gets to determine what the final payouts are, then it's still not really non-custodial. It's still not really just sufficiently decentralized. So that's kind of the piece that I think we're working on next.
Thanks. Russ, do you want to add something to get the question?
Yeah, just similar sort of approach really. So we're an exchange on the topic of zero. But, we also have a sort of exchange token, connect token, which we use to bootstrap our exchange in the past couple of years. So the plan for that is sort of we're launching a DAO. So there's a DAO that's going to control us. So our lend holders, 2,000-3,000 of them are going to have like a say on what goes on, how they sort of distribute their funds, and the DAO will have control of all the smart contracts. So although it gets rid of some risks in terms of there won't be one central point of failure for a smart contract. You're introducing all sorts of other risks. It'll be 2017 to 2018 people were building protocols. Now the concept of sort of DAOs is like sort of really taken off. If anyone was in Berlin a couple of weeks ago, like DAO was like the main topic. It was amazing. So I think like now everyone's sort of getting to grips with like how these DAOs are looking in the architecture, and it's going to be really exciting in a couple of months.
Great point and great suggestion. It's also what I wanted to add. You have also the option in the future when you decentralize to obviously hand over the control of the smart contracts to a DAO. That's what Melon did. So the Melon Protocol is governed by an American DAO today, and we see this as a reasonable way to decentralize the decision power within the system. But I want to come back to ways of decentralizing the governance a little bit later. I want to go back to the price feed question, which you started bringing up. So in DeFi, a lot of protocols rely on an oracle, on getting data from the outside world, outside of the chain. And today, a lot of protocols in DeFi actually rely on one oracle, which is the maker oracle, which has been working great for since it exists. But still, in the context of decentralization, one aspect that is important for me is that you have systems that are really resilient and resistant. So if for any reason the maker oracle is getting compromised, a lot of DeFi protocols will be in very good troubles. So do you guys have something to say on that? I think also Addison, Uma is also building decentralized oracles, so maybe you have something to say on that.
Yeah, I mean, you control the oracle, you control the payouts. Whether we're concerned about many different DeFi projects using a maker oracle, or just in general, a DeFi project needing an oracle at all, right? There aren't really great solutions right now. Most of the oracle solutions to date have focused on index computation off-chain, and then kind of building redundancy, DevOps, and backups to get that data securely from off-chain to on-chain. It hasn't really focused on kind of the human judgment aspect of it. So, for example, let's say you're building a DeFi protocol and you need information about what the price of ETH dollars is. You can use a fantastic decentralized governance mechanism to figure out how you want to calculate that index, which exchanges you want to TWAP or VWAP in for purposes of index construction. That's great. But what if there's, let's say, a flash crash one day, right? And you don't actually believe that for purposes of your particular DeFi project, the prices we experience during that flash crash or during some sort of market manipulation really represent prices that these financial contracts are settled to. What are you going to do then? How do you exercise that human judgment? A smart contract won't know. A smart contract will just say, okay, cool, the price of $8 is $10 because of this arbitrary flash crash. But that may not actually reflect reality. It may not reflect that human judgment. So I think that's a really, really important problem that we need to solve in this space in order to actually securely scale DeFi protocols to billions or trillions of dollars. That's what I'll be talking about tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, do you want to share a little bit your approach to that, to building like a secure and like scalable decentralized Oracle? So I think it's like the very sensitive part in DeFi, so I think it would be interesting for the audience to share a bit of that.
The short answer is basically that anytime you have a smart contract that relies on an oracle or external data, it creates effectively a honeypot for people to somehow try to hack into, where one of these attack vectors is through being able to manipulate the oracle itself. So the oracle that we're building basically adds in an economic guarantee to any oracle. The idea being that if there is potentially an economic incentive to corrupt an oracle, because it involves money sitting inside of the contract depending on an oracle, we can build a system where it would actually cost you more money to bribe this oracle to commit that attack than you could potentially earn by attacking these smart contracts. And we do this through a dynamic taxation mechanism and a shelling point style, building a shelling point style voting system in our decentralized protocol.